this computer. Okay, great. Good afternoon. I am here with Kiran Venkatesan. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Stephanie. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here this afternoon. I reached out to each candidate to request a few minutes of your time to really talk about the things that are important to the students in our district, students with disabilities. I'm glad I got to see you at our the special services and curriculum meeting this week. So you got to hear a little bit about special services in our district.
Yep.
Which is always a great learning opportunity at those meetings. So with that said, I sent all of the candidates a few questions in advance of our meeting today. So I wanted to start by asking you the first question. So the first question for our candidates running for Board of Education is, when you hear terms like inclusion, diversity, and equity, how do you believe that students with disabilities fit into these principles in our district? And as a Board of Education member, how will you advocate for true inclusion and equity for all students?
Sure. So when I hear terms like inclusion, diversity, and equity, I believe that students with disabilities are an integral core part of these principles, right? There's nothing different, of classification needed here. They are part of the, DEI, right, in our district. And inclusion means creating a supportive and welcoming environment for all students, where all students, regardless of their abilities, can thrive, right? And diversity means recognizing and valuing the unique contributions that each student, right, any student and each student, right, brings to the table or brings to the community. And equity means ensuring that every student, right, every in bold and strong, right, every student has access to the resources and opportunities they need to succeed, right? That would be my, very quick take on it. But to add on a little more, by embracing these core principles, right, we can create a truly inclusive environment and an equitable learning environment, more importantly, where all students are felt valued or feel valued and respected, right? And this definitely involves, right, providing appropriate accommodations in our policies, in the system that we have to execute, and individualized support where needed, and create more opportunities for students with disabilities to have them fully participate in the school life, in all aspects of the school life. Like one of the points I raised or brought up, in the candidates night was around, we need to make sure students with all abilities are part of the mainstream, right? That's where I'm kind of alluding, these points to. So by doing so, right, we not only enhance their educational experience, but also promote more empathy and understanding and acceptance among all students, right? So this is like a holistic approach, right, that brings the benefits to the entire school community and prepares all students, right, for a diverse and inclusive society, right? So that's what my approach or the understanding of DEI, in this case, actually. And what would I do as a board education or a board of education member? I will advocate for all of that I said just now to have a true inclusion and equity by prioritizing several actions, right? First is, I would like to work and develop on the policies, review the policies that exist as of today, and look at, we can review, as probably Stephanie, and probably others know, the Board of Education is here as a governance body, right? The Board of Education is not the executor. The executor is the school district, the school administration. The Board of Education's primary responsibility is to make sure we have the right policies in place. Times keep changing, things keep evolving. So that's where I would start first by reviewing the existing policies. What more amendments, we probably need to do or introduce any new policies? What are the state regulations and the state expectations? As SEPAG is one of them, and thanks to you and the community, behind you supporting and operating on SEPAG, that's where I would start with the sitting with you and the folks. What are the struggles we have as of today, and where we need to go forward? Work with you all to create a strategic plan. It is probably the first 3 months we can work with, and here's the next 6 months on the target as 1 year or 2 years we can work with. Right? We cannot really achieve everything like in 3 months, right? So that's why I was emphasizing more on strategic planning. That's how I do my business. That's how I get my paychecks and I get my bonuses. If they're rewarding me, I'm sure I'm doing something good, and that's what I want to bring to the table. Those skills that I garnered and have learned, And that's what I would do. And the other aspect of it towards that, as a board member, I want to bring in more engagement, right, between parents, teachers, and administrators and community members, because everybody has a perspective, and we need to bring in, all the perspectives and collaborate, right, and initiate the promote the inclusion and equity among everybody, right. So I will
Yeah.
also advocate for allocation of resources, right. For example, one of the SEPAG meetings I attended, the last ones, you and some others also called out, hey, the devices that are given to the children, they're so broken, right? And why can't we have highest priority should be to the kids with, abilities, they need to be addressed first. They need to have a backup device, right? So these are some things which I like to work with you all and see how we can, improve. And we can also invest, or we should probably, right, appropriately into more of a speech language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and we need to look at the diverse needs of our students, and the students also keep rolling, right? Some students probably graduate out, students come in. So we need to look at the long spectrum, right? What is the forecast going to look like? I want to really plan for my next 2025 and 26 year right now, like starting January, right? So sorry, I'm talking more, but these are my
No, no,
thoughts.
no, no. But it's a rich conversation that, that's why I'm glad we are able to have this opportunity to
Sure.
talk about this because, you mentioned the allocation of resources. And I think when you look at how much it is to a district is spending on funding a special education student versus a general education student, there is a big difference. It is costly to educate a child with a disability in a school district. And when
Yeah.
we're dealing with um, six off the top of my head, 1600 or so classified
Yeah.
students in our school district. It's a lot. So I think that as we go through and look at budgeting and forecasting and all of that, it is conversations that come up. And as a board of
Yeah.
education members, it's thinking about the amount of money that's spent to educate each student as we're talking about increasing services. So speech therapy and occupational therapy are things that do
Yeah.
cost come
Yeah.
at a cost, and bringing it in.
Yeah.
I would never turn down the opportunity for our school district to bring those
Yeah.
those things in, but it does
Yeah.
come, at a cost, and at a cost when we're dealing with being an S2 district where we are losing money every year. It is something that's always a conversation.
Challenging.
I have to
Yeah.
say, our district has done a very good job every year of really
Sure.
protecting and ensuring that special education and our students are not
Sure.
that we're not negatively impacted by
Yeah.
the situation with the funding in the district. So,
Yeah.
so hopefully we'll get through the hump of the S2
Yeah.
funding.
Yeah. Yeah. One last
But
point on that, just coming to my
yeah,
mind, if you don't mind.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
I always look for betterment, right? Yes, we are doing great. Absolutely. That's good. Actually, that's why many of us live in the town still, right? Because our district is doing well for all
Right.
abilities, right? But always there is an opportunity for improvement. Somebody has to look for what is my next 5 years going to look like, right? I cannot be just sitting here as a board member looking at my existing operational needs. That is the job of the school administration to execute the next year, right? But as a board has to work through the policies, create the right policies, forecast for the next couple of years, 3 years. And more importantly, we need to bring collaboration between school districts. I like to go and learn, like for example, Alaska Anchorage School District is managing 40,000 kids, 40,000 students, right? And they have a big budget, of course. But I want to go and learn of other school districts. How are they managing? How are they dealing with similar situations? And inflation is the same for everybody in this country, right? And yes, allocations could be different, but I would like to go and also explore, along with you and anybody else in this specific area, join you guys, join the forces and go and explore more what we can learn and bring into our district actually.
And one of the things that on your platform, and I see you have it in your background. One of the things on your platform was talking about to promote collaboration and transparent communication, and that is a question I wanted
Yep.
to ask you. How can you give me an example of collaborate, like of how you would go about creating more opportunities in our district for collaboration?
Sure.
And yeah, so we'll start there
Sure.
first.
That's a good. Sure, no problem. I will come to the second question later. I'll answer this.
Yeah.
Um, for me, fundamentally, right, when gaps arise and when we have disagreements, more disagreements, of course, we will have disagreements, more disagreements, is if we are not aligned on the same goals and objectives, right? So, what I would do, like I was saying in the candidates night, if I'm elected, the immediate first thing I would like to do is whoever is on the board at that point of time, I would like to sit with the board people first, like board members first. Guys, this is our turn. These are our kids. What do we want to bring to the table, each of us? We know a list of 50 problems at hand, right? Can we sit and prioritize? 50 problems, let's make a list of a 15 or a 10 or a 5. What are our immediate needs? Do we all agree these problems? Do we all see these problems? If we all see this as the problems, we all agree upon these problems, let's first start working towards them. How do we solve them? Right? So what in industry, what we call these as objectives and key results. We set up certain themes. So themes could be, along like, how do we enhance our special education needs, for example, right? Enhancing special education needs could be a theme for the year, next year, right? Under that, you could create objectives. We'll sit with you to understand. Yes, Stephanie, what are the key objectives or the problem areas you want to solve for the next year? I would sit down and write down your objectives, and we board members can all review, what are those objectives, and then we can measure ourselves. Okay, what are the key results we expect? Okay, this problem is going to take multiple years to solve, but an immediate key result I expect is at least let's improve by 10%, at least let's improve by 20%, right? And then create year over year and quarterly review this. I want to cultivate an habit of measuring the progress. It is not just defining the policies, hand it off to the school administration and go off and look at something else. We all need to be accountable, right? That's how I run my business, or I'm getting paid, for example. So I want to make sure everybody is accountable, including the board member as well, right?
Yeah.
The board member should be also be measured as to what have you offered to the table. So I want to. That's where I'm going. The transfer comes in if all of us look at the same goals.
Right.
All of them has to vote. Hey, okay, guys, January to December, the board members, what is your backlog? What are you going to work on?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like teams, really just kind of creating some teams that are focused on what the issue is, and those teams are comprised of people from different areas coming together, like a think tank, to kind of come up with some, identifying what some of the solutions are to the issues. So got it.
Yeah, I mentioned the themes actually. If my pronunciation was wrong, themes. What are the broader themes we want to work on
Oh,
in the
oh, I'm
year?
sorry. Themes. Got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So the next question is, and it kind of ties into this. So part of the work that we do as a special education parent advisory group is to review the policies, programs, practices in our district to ensure equity, access, and inclusion of all students. How will you approach? And I think you just touched on this, approaching decision making on policies, programs, and practices that are impacting students with disabilities.
Sure. I think to achieve this, we must approach decision making with a comprehensive and inclusive mindset. This involves considering unique needs and challenges faced by students with disabilities and ensuring that our policies and programs are designed to support their success. So I'm a big again on data-driven analysis and stakeholder engagement, right? As much as I spoke about setting teams for the year, setting objectives and measurable results, right? We need to look at making sure all the stakeholders in this are signing up for it, right?
Mhm.
And they can, and this is not a forceful way, right? Don't get me wrong, or others should not get me wrong. We're not trying to force anything on anybody. Some of this or any of this can only happen if we all volunteer in, or whoever is accountable, they all come up and sign up for that goals for the year. Okay, I want to raise my bar by 5% in my area. Okay, I think I know what to do. Okay, maybe, I can go and negotiate with this vendor. Hey, vendor, why don't you give me a better rate or a quote, for this year? That same challenge the whole country is going on right now. Challenge the vendor, challenge multiple vendors. I'm just speaking one example here. So that's how everybody should take, because this is a big problem to solve. Split the problem into multiple parts, and every role as or rather, every stakeholder has a role to play, let us say, in their scope, right? Create a scope for them. How can you contribute to this objective, right? Okay, now, what does the measurable progress you can make, you think, right, in the year? right? And then, okay, what is the measurable progress you can make for a quarter, right? So
Mhm.
make them more accountable to achieve, their outcomes, right, within that quarter and the year. And that's how together all of this will come into shape,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's one thing.
Okay.
And the next thing is, I will also advise a collaborative approach, like I mentioned earlier, by involving all of these key stakeholders more early in the decision-making process. And next thing is, I did it on this little early. We need to do a lot of research, right? As board members, importantly, right? There is a lot of learning here, right? No one board member for sure is an educator or an equivalent to a subject matter expert in the education industry. The reason for the board is to bring in diversified experience, right? People like what I'm talking probably, right? And others could talk different perspectives, right? Bring in the diversified experience to the board and treat educators as the subject matter experts. They are the superstars, are the well-knowledge people in that area. All they need is the guidance that we can bring in from outside in, right? Because we solve some of the similar problems outside, but help them guide. Here is probably a measurable way we can do things. Here is probably optimum way we can do things, and here is an efficient way. We can cut down some cost or ramp up some resources on the other side, and that's how I see a collaborative approach. So I would want to involve all the stakeholders, be part of this. And when it comes to policy development, I would want to promote, more of inclusion and equity and access for all students, like I mentioned earlier, and allocation of resources. So all of this will follow through. Once we all sit and agree upon, okay, here are the goals, here are the objectives, here is the problems we need to solve. I think all of them, will follow through. I'm just trying to think
Well,
anything else I have
so
on this.
and
Yeah.
I have a question about that. So let's say there's a policy that that let's say a policy is coming out down the line for the school district, and it could be a polarizing school policy.
Mhm.
How would you approach that situation where you have stakeholders feeling one way, stakeholders feeling another way, it's not united, and it's something that could have some type of bigger impact. So talk to me about your process in that, if there is and I'm going to focus on a policy that's coming down.
Sure. So the best way to mitigate or solve some of this as we encounter this would be to really look at our larger, bigger picture. Okay, as board members, we have agreed upon to achieve these 5 or 10. Each of us are measurable to achieve them. It's not only the school administration, right? If you're creating a policy and offering it to school administration, doesn't mean they're going to solve all the problems. We need to help and guide them. We are accountable equally as board members to stick on to what we agreed upon. So that's where our rationale should be. Our rationale should go back. Okay, agreed, we have disagreement on some topic, but how much of a deviation it is going to cause to achieve this objective? I'll take an example, right? If you have a goal, "Hey, I want to raise my academic outcomes, my proficiency levels, or anything else by X percentage, right? That's my goal for the next year. Yes, these kind of policies keep coming in. But if we disagree and not do anything about it, right, then how are we going to meet this? And how are we going to go back to the state? We are accountable to the state. We are state officials, by the way, right? We are publicly elected state officials. So we are accountable. And there is this many people, who voted for us or, and so on, right? So we need to come into an agreement. We cannot say, no, and just park ourselves with our own silos, right? So, great question. The first point should start for every board member is, what are you here for? What is the accountability you bring in? Right? So when that gets into the genes and your role, right, then I'm sure you have to start functioning. You cannot just say I am disagreed, and you cannot just park yourself. The children are impacted. The school district is impacted.
Exactly. And I think that when we're looking at, and especially the work that we do in our group, and I think when we talk about inclusion, it's understanding, it's understanding that not every child it has the same home life. It's understanding that every child is very different. And so I think when we talk again, going back to that equity and the diversity and that inclusion, it is so, and looking at the policies, sometimes, these policies are, I think, looking at the big picture, right? And looking at the fact that every child has a different circumstances. So how can you, in your role and steps that you will take to ensure that you are engaging with your fellow board members and really trying to acknowledge and pass policy that is inclusive of all students. And I think that that's important. And I think that that is something that is a concern, which kind of ties into the next question about the diversity of families, right? So how are you ensuring in your role as a Board of Ed member that you will take the feedback and input of all families in our looking, knowing that every family does not look like yours, they don't look like mine, all families look different.
Absolutely. So I think it's again, very important that we start always with a feedback. And when we have a new set of board members, like starting in January, right, we have to sit together with you, hear from the community. One of the things we should do, I think, is do some kind of a survey, right, which is a really meaningful survey. And we should kind of mandate to an extent of some top 5 questions or so, right? Yes, probably we can have 20 questions, but what is important for this town? Right? Yes, we talk in these board meetings or public come and talk, about their concerns, but rather we should work with the school administration, create a survey across all the schools, all the able kids, right? And get to first understand the feel of what the people are talking about or thinking about, right? Get in that inputs, start aggregating that data, and then as board members sit together. Here are the 5 key problems or challenges the people are thinking about or facing, right? And then we should start see how we all can agree upon, because this data is not something which any of us came up with. This is people's sentiments and people's thought process. End of the day, they are taxpayers, or we are all taxpayers, and all of this is towards that, right? Giving back to the taxpayers what quality education or the quality needs or the special attention and the needs we can give back. So one of the things I think that's why I kind of said as a reset. It's just a time for a reset in many of the operational activities of the board, right? As well as execution, right? Historically, yes, we have done certain things in certain way, but yes, we need to start making changes to the way of working in the board, as well as along with the school administration, make accountability part of the DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
People will drive, right? People will drive the expected outcomes. People has to tell us, what we are looking for, or aggregate, those issues, and then board look at that holistically along with the superintendent, right? Come up with plans how we can execute. So I would
Mm-hmm.
really focus on a process, because to me today the process is either not there or it is broken. There is no accountable process. At least that's what I feel.
I think, and that's part of that third question. The second part to that is the in speaking about the policies and looking at again how things are impacting families and the diversity of families that are in this town. What will you do to help ensure that it can be divisive, our Board of Education
Yep.
meetings, unfortunately, and there's a some stuff that goes on. What steps can you take and what can you do as a Board of Ed member, if elected, to really try and work together and try to really focus on not having this divisive climate that we seem to have at Board of Education meetings?
Yeah, I think your question was how will you create a safe environment
Yes.
in sometimes a divisive climate, right?
Yes.
So, like I said, first I would start with hearing from people, listening to people, either through these feedback mechanisms or surveys or town hall meetings, putting all of them together, right?
Yep.
And channelizing all of this to make informed decisions, right? Within the board, first of all, to prioritize things, right? And I'll also advocate for cultural competency training for board members, right? Some of this, right, as much as probably I say, our industry standards and practices, I think as board members, even board members need to reevaluate themselves, or make sure they are trained enough to deal with all these kind of practical problems. It's more not about themselves or individual. It's more about what are the roles requirements, right? Yes, there are disagreements, but how do we organize ourselves? How do we function ourselves? How do we objectively solve these problems for the community? That should be the mentality, right? That's what these trainings will offer you to shape you up into. So I would work with the New Jersey Board of Education. There's a group, I forgot the entire name of it.
The
So
School
they
Board
offer these.
Association?
Yeah, School Board Association. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they do offer these trainings. They are the guardrails for the board, actually, right? So working with them, bring them in here if needed, however. So get ourselves first equipped and trained as a board member. What is your role? You cannot just say disagree and go off, right? You have to look at
Right.
the bigger picture, actually, right? So that would be my first thing. And next thing, what I would also suggest is after we hear all those feedbacks and everything, we need to encourage more participation and reviews of what we think as a board that we would like to do as a proposal of the policies in more detail. And communication is the key, I think. I am very sure, not everybody comes to the board meetings, not everybody listens to our recordings or YouTube, but still we have to find ways. And who is accountable for communication? The school district is accountable for communication because the board is a board who comes and creates these policies and monitor. Monitoring is another important aspect. I'll touch upon it a little bit later. But work with the school administration, who has access to all the people in the town, not the board. The school administration has access to all the people in the town. They have the kids coming in, they send the flyers, right, and whatnot. So we need to find ways how we can improve our communication process for all of this to penetrate right into every single home, right, and get feedback, right. If they don't get feedback, they cannot come and ask the questions in the board meetings or anywhere or complain. We need parental involvement, right, for all type of kids, right. So that's a process we need to execute and make those as part of policies, right. Create those communication policies or refresh our policies, and then get more engagement of people to make them understand, here are the priorities. We heard your feedback, and here is the priorities. We work with each group like SEPAG or SEPTAN, all possible PTA groups, and here is the improvements we want to make, and here is how we are planning to use your taxpayers' money. Here is where we see we need to grow. Yes, we are doing good on par with the New Jersey standards. That is great. But is that the bar we need to set for our kids? Absolutely not. Right? We need to set a bar with a much more better performing district. Of course, New Jersey is going to be averaged out across all the districts. So I would look for setting a bar, whichever school district is performing great on special needs, whichever district is performing great on academics. I would look at those school districts and look at, hey, how do we go from here to there? What do we need to do?
Okay. Okay. Good. So you touched before, and I know we're in the interest of time here. We'll wrap this up. This will be kind of my last question, but I know you hit on cultural competency before. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the role that you feel that would play in being an effective Board of Ed member?
When I said advocate for cultural competency training for all the board members or the staff or the teachers involved, right? It is more of each of us are professionally trained to do certain things, certain tasks, right? As a principal, you're definitely well trained and you're equipped, and you do your job. As a board member, yes, we need to get that kind of a training. As a superintendent, you do that. But how about all of us working together? How do we get that competency? If I come and tell you, hey, Stephanie, this is what you're supposed to do, I'm pretty sure you're not going to listen to me. Or when you tell me, I'm not going to listen to that. But bring in a third party body who has solved all these problems. These are common problems. Every school district will keep having. So my point is, this is a pretty common nature of people and people's minds. But the ultimate goal should be children. And for the children, how do we establish a common process? We all have to align to a common process and agree upon that process, right? So that is where I think we need to get some kind of a training to the board members or the key staff and everybody. How do we all cross-pollinate and collaborate across our roles to achieve those outcomes that we all agree upon?
Got it. Okay. Well, this was great. And finally, one last quick question. So should you not win for whatever reason, will you continue to stay? 'Cause I noticed that sometimes if someone runs and then they're not elected, I don't see them at meetings anymore. Will you continue and again, whatever the outcome is, but to continue to get actively involved and stay involved and continue to show up to meetings?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the
Okay.
reasons I picked up this active role in social interest or community is more to I'm at an age in my life, right, where my wife and I we were involved pretty much in our previous towns or in our previous lives, but we want to continue that journey forward, you know. And our kids are also growing, like they're like 8 years now. So unless we get involved and look at what's happening in the town and the community, so it all starts from here, right? So it has to start from here, and that's why our
Exactly.
principle. So whatever time is permitted or we are allowed, right? Even if I don't win, I'm happy to come and participate in the sessions and be part of the community and give back to the community whatever learnings and whatever our parents has taught us
Yeah.
importantly. So that's the
Yeah.
goal. Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, everyone's voice matters, right? So it's always
yeah,
about getting yourself out there. And I appreciate that. So
yeah,
thank you
yeah.
so much. I really
Sure.
appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions. And this will be a great source of information for our parents in our district. So I thank you so much, Kieran, for your time.
Sure. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thanks for having me. I hope I answered all your questions.
Okay. So
Yeah.
thank you very
Thank you.
much. Have a great day. Take
Yeah.
care.
See you. Bye. Bye.